Divine and royal greetings, family. The Emerald Green Collective back in action on another Friday for Build Through Book Club. I'm here, Shayola Benta, woo woo woo, with Coach Shantae Wilkerson, woo woo woo, and with Coach Lawyer Mommy, the official Lawyer Mommy, Lorraine Thunderbird. And we say shout
And
out to the rest of the collective. Everyone is knee deep in their works. So, like we say, it's kind of hard to get 8 people, 9 people in one space, but we are here. How has the last 7 days been for you all? How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling fully supported and grateful. Um, we've got a lot of planets in retrograde right now. And Karen Rose of, what is it? I cannot remember the name of her company right now, but she is absolutely amazing. Sacred Botanica. And she posted that retrogrades can sometimes be a time of regression. And it's not necessarily that we are regressing, but we are being taken back through lessons that we have learned just to solidify the lessons and to show us areas where we need to put a little bit more emphasis, or areas where we can kind of pat ourselves on the back and say, good job, you've made it. And I had a few opportunities to pat myself on the back and say, good job, you made it. And it just has been so amazing. So I'm just looking forward to the next 7 days.
Okay. Well, come through with patting yourself on the back, because the victories, recognizing those are definitely important. I see that Lawyer Mommy she's homeschooling, which is pretty dope. And I know that it is not an easy task. So I know that she's going to come in and out.
yes,
But
I was
today,
gonna say, I'm sorry.
you're
I was
here.
Yeah, I'm here. I have my cleaning lady and my kids and the vacuum, and it's very loud where I am. So I was just
Okay.
like, let me mute until I'm gonna come on, so y'all won't be subject to all these distractions. But yes, no, this week was pretty good for me. I spent most of it really just resting and recharging. I was celebrating my birthday last week, as you guys know, and I was with a group of ladies, and it was, just a lot of energy, a lot of personalities, a lot of things. So when I came back, I was like emotionally, physically, mentally drained. And so I just took the week to, pour into myself, get lots of much needed rest, eat good, and stay away from the masses.
Well, so that's a great segue into the conversation that Coach Shantae and I started before we actually went live. Because today's topic is, what is healing and who heals the healer? And I was a little delayed getting on today's broadcast because I was responding to something that didn't really ruffle my feathers, but it made me really check myself, right? So on this healer journey, we have, family, friends, associates that may not understand it. They may not understand what it is that we do, why we do it. This world of healership, if you will, is so vast. There's so many avenues and things that or roads you can take. And of course, all of us having our own destiny, we have to travel the road that the Most High has laid out for us. So I was just thinking about, how uh, detrimental support is, or lack thereof. And when do we say, you know what, this that you deem as support is not really supportive with me, or this thing that you do because you don't understand my journey is draining, and it's a little bit unnerving in some situations. So what do y'all say about family, friends, associates, or what have you? Do you even care that they do not understand the healer's journey and what what that all entails?
Ooh. So I would say, before I really got on this path, I had heard and read, this is a lonely path and you got to go it alone. And, once you get on the path and you kind of, done whatever, then you'll start to find your tribe. And I was like, oh, okay. Something that I put in my pocket and I just kept on walking. I found that there were a lot of people that I grew up with in the church who were also leaving the church at the same time that I was. We all had our own reasons. And through, just the course of life, one by one, they started to fall into their own things. And then I found myself alone. And some of the people that started off on their own journey of exploration ended up going back to the church. And for me, it was kind of like, wow, you have learned all of these things over here that compete with this over here. What made you decide to go back this way? And it took me a little while to get to a space where I just accepted that that's where they are in their journey. And that's, what they needed for themselves. So I didn't too much allow that to bother me. And then the truth of the first thing that I discovered was that as I went on my journey, discovering my truth, my authentic self, the more I would be surrounded by and come in contact with people who also believe the same things or had the same open-mindedness that I have, or were further into things that I was already studying and could give me guidance and support. And that is where I found my answer to the question, who heals the healers? It's the other healers, the other people that have gone on their own journey, no matter what that journey looked like, whether they circled back to Christianity or went to another spiritual practice. Those are the people who come together and we shoulder this life thing and we make it doable because we can bounce our ideas off of each other and we can fill one another up when it's needed. So that's my answer to the question.
Okay. Lawyer Mommy and I had a conversation earlier in the week, and you actually said something that intrigued me just as it relates to, going on your or treading this journey and realizing that, some of the friends, maybe even family may not understand it, but it's just like, well, I found what feels good to my soul. So I'm going to continue to journey. But you mentioned something about it being, it could be draining. Did you want to elaborate on what you meant? How you meant? Let's see if she can unmute.
Yeah. Are you talking to me? I'm sorry. Hold on.
Yes.
Let me go outside because it sounds like mayhem in here. Yes. So very much so. So I definitely experienced that on the trip that I just came off of, because in that I'm the only one of the girls who went that have gone on this, healing journey, the spiritual journey. And so I did want to share a piece of that with them because it's something that has been transformative for me, the last year and a half or so that I've been on it. And just because, once you start feeling good and getting the healing, you like, I'm trying to bring this to everybody, everybody needs to feel like this. Right. So, we did put together a ceremony with one of our other practitioners, Amber, who actually lives in Costa Rica. So she came out and she did a cacao ceremony for us, a healing circle, all the things. And it did bring up, I do feel like ultimately the girls were able to release some things in that process. Some of them were not as open to it, as the others, but they all participated, just because it was something that, I definitely wanted them to do. But yeah, what I realized is that, so all the women that were there with me were people who I've known very well and were bonded to at certain points in my life, right? One is my sister, one's I've known since I was 10, my roommate from college, and then my law school bestie, so definitely knew me in different areas, different times of periods of my life. And what I realized, as I was there with them, I saw the common thread for sure. I saw what it was that bonded us together. And I noticed that they all kind of still had that, even though they didn't know each other, I saw that in them, but I also saw that was not for me anymore. And so it was a lot of growing pains for me, honestly, in that trip, because I was like, I don't know that I really want to continue those relationships in the way that I had, you know, up until this point, because there was just so much, and it was draining. I'm like, I came back from this trip like, oh my God, if I never see another person for 3 months, like I am good, you know. But it was just, and it was very much like, you know, people, you go on vacation, people want to party, drink, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I don't have any issues with any of that, but I'm like, I don't necessarily want to be a part of that all of the time. And like, I need my time to like rest and reset. Like there were times I'm literally like in my room pretending to be asleep just so that I could not be bothered by the people who were on this trip, you know. And it was like, just because I'm like, I need, like, I'm used to waking up at, you know, 3-4 o'clock in the morning, having my silent time, having my tea, doing my journaling, my meditation. It was like, there was just not space for it. And it really, like, to me, I felt like it was a lack of, like, honestly, like a lack of respect for what it is that I, like, who it is that I've become. And I'm like, so that's the part that, like, for me is intolerable. Like, no, you don't have to, you know, accept what it is that I'm doing. You don't have to, you know, go on this journey. You know, everybody will heal on their own time, however it is meant to be for them. But what I didn't like was the, like, yeah, just the, I'm trying to see the best words, but it was definitely that's not what we do. We don't know where you get this from, you know, like, even like when they're mentioning like the sacred sisters and stuff, it's kind of like, you know, sly, underhanded. Like, I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here. You know? And I was bothered by it, but to a certain extent, I was like, you know what, after I thought about it, because at one point I think I was really upset. But then I thought about it, like, you know what, this was probably a great way for me to actually release this part of my life, these individuals. Like, we had a good time for the most part, you know, as far as the trip was concerned. And I was like, that's really what I took it as at the end of the day. Like, this is a good releasing, you know, party. You know, I'm stepping into 40 years around the sun. I'm stepping into my emerald green practitioner, those shoes, like all of the things. And there are just certain people who can't come with you when you're soaring to new heights. And that's just what it is. It doesn't have to be like animosity. It doesn't have to be any of those things, you know. It's just like, we are not vibrating on the same frequency. And like, in order for there not to be conflict, it's like, well, I'm just going to leave you where you're at. And if you come, you know, at some point and elevate to this level, I'm here with open arms. But until then, like, for me, the separation does really need to happen. And it's because it is draining, like that energy exchange, like I'm feeling it to like the max, you know. And I'm like, I'm not here for it. I'm like, I'm not here for it, because you're interfering with what it is that I need to do. And you're also bringing me back to a space that I'm not trying to be in anymore. And so, yeah.
Well, shout out to you for, you know, recognizing, you know, it's like, I'm upset, but it's like, am I really upset? You know what, Most High, I'm not. I'm actually grateful. Thank you for revealing this to me, because now I know that this is a release, and, you know, that I need to undergo, because it really is growing pains. And I love, you know, here again, our space, because who heals the healer? When you're out there and you're doing the work and you're trying to do all that you can do, but you have people who are either dream killers or people that don't understand, it could be draining. Or if you're just even practicing, there is, of course, you got to do your own work, but it's good to have people to bounce off of, like, you know what, it's okay. We're still here. Things may be happening in your world, but we're still here. So thank you for that share. We see that Brother King Dom has entered the building. Yay!
Greetings.
So we were just, you know, preluding to our screenshot of the day of, you know, what is healing, who heals the healer, and having the support to be able to even do your healing works. So what say you? Do you find that people around you are more supportive of the journey, or it's just like, oh, we didn't grow up that way, so that's that, you shouldn't be doing that? How has your journey been, you know, since you started?
Well, I'm going to get to that question, but firstly, I wanted to touch bases with what Lorraine was saying, and how it's just so admirable to see that she was able to be aware of everything that's going on around her, as far as, because that's what healing is all about. It's
Mm,
just being aware and not neglecting what's good for you, right? And
mhm,
for me, it's like I have family and everyone around me that's supportive of my journey. uh you know, it sometimes you have individuals who really don't know what healing looks like, but healing looks like different things for anyone and
mhm,
everybody,
mhm,
right? It's just making something healthy again, like maybe doing the basics better, right? And maybe loving yourself a little more than you thought you were
mhm,
in the beginning. Um so it's really been a great journey, because of the fact that I decided to take accountability and started to heal myself. And when I started to love myself a little more and be aware, other people can pick that up. They receive that. They receive that type of energy. So it's the energy that you're putting out there that allows people to kind of have this acceptance of, embracing, oh, so this is what healing is. So it never really was a challenge, because instead of talking about it, I was being about it, right?
mhm,
I was showing it through like my daily actions.
mhm,
Just it's just something as simple as waking up and making up my bed,
mhm,
or just doing some cleaning up, just showing that consistency,
mhm,
just in your daily routine, doing
mhm,
something that may be out of the ordinary. That I didn't know. I noticed that Dom cleaned up on Monday, but he's doing it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday
mhm,
at the same time. So it's
mhm,
getting into this routine and turning it into a habit. And
mhm,
I hope I'm not getting like off topic here, because we are talking about healing, but those things are healing, because it reflects your home, and the things that you do externally reflects on what's going on internally inside your body.
mhm, mhm. I think thank you for that share. I've been on my healing journey for 12 years. So it's been a ride. People may not, and the reason this portion of the conversation had even started is because I find that people come into your life in different reasons and maybe even seasons, they expect you to be a certain type of way throughout. And I would like to think
Ah,
that I'm
Shay.
living embodiment of the work that I have been doing.
Hmm.
So it kind of does, boggle the mind a little bit. Like, I've been doing this for 12 years and it's still that, oh, I don't think that you should be doing that. Or, that's this or that. And it's just like,
Mm.
how do you know that if you haven't actually explored this? Like, how do you know that?
I was gonna say,
You're
go
based,
ahead.
what you say, Lorraine?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll let you
I was
back
just
up.
saying you're basing um, what you believe in old data, right? And on top of that, you're striving to inflict it or impose it upon me, right? So do you
Mm.
get to a point where you're like, you know what? I'm going to love you from a distance, or I'm just going to cut it off here because this lack of support, doesn't really help? Or do you just not say anything at all? I mean, I recognize how I will handle, the situation, but it really does boggle my mind just a little bit when you see, you know, me personally, I feel like I've planted so many seeds to help whoever I can along my healing journey. So it just is like, who are you to tell me what isn't for me? You know
Right,
what I'm saying?
That
right.
Like, who
part.
are you to say that this, what is for me isn't it just
Mind boggling.
it
And
really
that's,
is mind-boggling.
yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine saying, you know what, Lorraine, I don't think that you should be a lawyer. It's like, okay, well, that's your opinion, but I'm
Right.
gonna do what I feel that I need to do for me. And it isn't one road to glory. As we
Mm-mm-mm.
said, we
Absolutely.
all have to
Absolutely.
walk our own path to get to where we're going. But it is very reminiscent of the third dimension and the ego.
You
We
just
wanna
said
Yes.
something extremely, extremely deep. There is not one path to glory.
Mm-mm.
But
But
when you talk to Christians specifically, there is this, and I'm not even, I think it is a scripture. I am the way, the truth, and the light. There is no other path to the Father except through me.
mhm.
That is taught as canon. So when you have grown up in that, you give yourself permission to question the religion, not God, but the religion. And you really get into your own understanding, understanding, all standings of how this thing actually works for yourself. It gets very challenging to just sit back and say, those teachings that I got as a Seventh-day Adventist coming up in the church, that was right truth. And I need to go back to that because this over here is just, it's very difficult once you give yourself the permission, you separate questioning this belief system from questioning God. That's where you can find your path. But for most people, those things are intertwined. To question the religious system, to question the doctrine is to question God. And if you do that, that's that old fire and brimstone, you're going straight to hell. And that is terrifying. That is truly terrifying to most people. The notion that if I go a different path, if I read something other than this, if I look and see what my astrology looks like, if I get a tarot reading, if I get a pendulum, if I do any of these things over here that are not expressly stated by my pastor that it's okay to do, I'm going straight to hell. When you can look in the Bible and you can see divinations, they had seers, they had all of these people doing all these things. The 3 wise men followed them. That's astrology. When you get into all of these things, it's like, but that questioning, unless it is given as this, it's not that. It's something totally different, overlooked, and the path is only this right here. And as crazy as it is, they've done a really good job with the psychology of religion and the psychology of belief. Because if you convince a person deeply enough, you keep them on board no matter what. No matter what.
Absolutely. I was going to say the veggie bag, because Shayola and I had a conversation about that earlier this week too, about especially with Christianity. So I grew up in a Christian household, I suppose. My mother went to church. She's very much a Bible thumper. But I remember being very like anti-Christianity because I'm like, I didn't like what I saw with her. I didn't like what I saw with people who were like, praise God, hallelujah, and if I did anything wrong, I was being rebuked in the name of Jesus. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I just don't get down with this, then I don't have to have that fear that everyone has. Because it was like, the way that it was taught, it was like, God is not somebody you really want on your side. Because it's like, it sounds like if at any given moment you don't do what he wants you to do, and you might not even know what he wants you to do. But if you don't do it, you're going to hell. And I was like, so I was like, I'm just going to opt out very early. Like, so I'm like, I don't have to believe in any of that. And that's fine. And for years, I didn't even feel comfortable saying God. Like, even when I would read books, like books that I would be getting into, as soon as they start talking about God, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I can't read this. Like, it's not for me. But it really wasn't until I went through the Sacred Woman journey and like, really got in touch with the divine power within me that I really started to go back and understand. Like, and I was like, so now I can say God, and I'm like, and I pray to God and I have a relationship with God. But it took me to learn that the non-religious version of what had been spewed at us for all these years for me to actually really make that connection. And I feel like even when I went back, I'm like, man, even the story of the Bible for me, like Jesus, I'm like, Jesus is the example of the person who like really elevated to the highest level and is like, oh, okay, like this is what we're talking about. So it was like I was able to go back and understand it from like that level. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can fool with it a little bit more now because it's not what has been being taught to us in the church. Which, when you think about it, the Bible was used to like enslave us, right? Like they used to say, or it was like the King James Version, it was used to control and this, that, and the third. So it was all very distorted as it was presented to us from the get-go, you know. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that part of that was purposeful, like from the people who understood that, like, as long as we disconnect people from like them actually knowing that they are a child of God, like in the like one of a supreme being of God, then they won't ever really be able to do the work of God either. And so that's where I'm at with it. But.
Come on, Deaconess.
Yes.
That's really real. I feel like too, for me, that I can appreciate the Bible so much more. Like I actually enjoy reading it from different perspectives. Even, you know, different regions have different translations of the Bible. So you could be reading the same thing, but someone, let's say in Turkey, has a totally different, you know, representation of the same word. So just being open and recognizing that this is a metaphysical work, we take it for historical document. And I think that that's where that programming comes in. Like, y'all, these are told from people that walk the earth just like you. And when we talk about Christ, Jesus, we're talking about a person, but we're talking about a Christ consciousness, and Christ is given to the name of many, not just one. So thank you for that. We have Minshew Vibes on YouTube. You know, she is saying they don't recognize that they are a spirit. Spirit is expansive. And man, this is good. So we thank you so much, Minshew Vibes, for coming in and commenting. But Brother Dom, do you have anything that you would like to add? And shout out, I'm glad that you have experienced full support, right? Because it is definitely a difference of vibration when you are fully supported and you can support yourself. If you don't have that support, you're still going to support yourself. You know, it could be a balancing act. So, you know, that's great.
Yeah. Because it's just about, you know, not opposing your views or on other people, just being transparent. Because a lot of the individuals that seen my growth, they were individuals that grew up with me. So even though they may have like their views or whatever, I just allow the questions to come, and because I was once questioning these things on this journey, because it didn't just like, I didn't grow up and, you know, the spirituality was in my spirit, but I didn't understand it. I didn't have that overstanding or understanding of, you know, spirituality, right? But it's life. You know, what is spirit? You know, it's many answers to that question, but it's something as simple as the breath. Just, you know, simply being aware of the breath and just being conscious and being aware of that, and that in itself is healing, right? And what does your healing journey looks like for you, right? And a lot of people question what they don't understand, and they may think what's not for you, or what's not healthy, or what's not this or that. But how would you know if you didn't try? Sometimes people you know, put their fears on you, and so that, you know, it can make them feel good in what in the position that they're in, and they continue that route. You know, well, you know, if I could get him to get off track, then, you know, maybe this ain't the best route. You know, that's why I said, that's why it goes back to that consistency. You know, you just showing up for yourself, because you don't even realize that Monday habits routine turns into Tuesday habits, and so on and so forth, and you continue that, and people's like, wow, he's really, really dedicated, and it becomes a lifestyle. It's not just this fad. And I think that for a lot of individuals, you know, it has become a fad because, you know, everyone is doing it and going with the flow, or because it's trendy in the moment, but it really will show up you know, in the future, when you're being asked questions, or when, you know, when your health, when it comes down to your health, right? How healthy you really are. Like, if you're always constantly saying that you're sick and stuff, it's like, why is that? You know, what are you doing to help yourself feel better? Why you keep going into the doctors or the hospital or being prescribed these all these kind of medications? Because maybe you're not trying to figure out the right way to heal yourself, you know? So I like to talk it and I end up getting off course. So I just want to stay of course. But yeah.
I think that's the aspect of all teachers, and we you know, we love it. You know, we so much information we take in and we want to, you know, share. But I love what you said. You know, just being willing to answer questions when people ask, and I love that. Just ask rather than you projecting your fears or your limitations or whatever. Just ask. And some people may not care for asking. They just want you to know how they're feeling about what it is that you're doing and how it makes them uncomfortable, which again leads back to ego, which also leads to a lack of healing. Because the moment you think that someone should be doing something or not doing something because you feel a way about it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that was going to be my question. Like, where does that come from? I think, like, since I've been more tapped in, I hear when people are shooting all over me, like, immediately, and I back up. I'm like, oh my God, like, what is this? And I'm like, how dare you? You know, even if you have experience what I'm going through or not, it's still the notion of how dare you have a plan for my life? Like, who are you to have a plan for my life? Like, you don't know, you know what you think you know about me, but you don't know all the ins and outs to me. You don't know my struggles. You don't know my trauma. You don't know my healing. You don't know my ups, my downs, my nothing. So how dare you come to me with what I should be doing? Like, I'm telling you that, oh, girl.
It's something, but it's definitely a thing. So what I'm going to do now, we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to strive y'all to share screen and put up this screenshot of a part of our reading. So let's see if we got it. I'm gonna try, y'all. I'm trying. Let me see if I could do it like this first. And we were trying to get it together before we came online, and it's just like, can you see it now? Can you see it? Can you see it now? And they're like, no, we don't see anything. So hopefully we can see it now. Let me do this. Hold on. I know we just see all the times I try to open it up. All right. Can y'all see the screen?
Yes.
Ma'am.
Okay, perfect. All right. So who feels charged or led to read Healing the Healer? Just take this whole page away. Anybody? I can't see y'all, so you can just start.
I was like, I can't see it that well now.
I'll read if nobody else wants to.
Okay, cool beans.
Okay. So Healing the Healer. Healers bear an enormous and sacred responsibility for serving the human family and life force. Honorable healers work from the heart, intuitive guidance, and by an inner calling. They are required to be living examples to their communities, upholding the highest standards of moral and spiritual integrity. Healers inspire wholeness and generate light in their communities and in the world. Healthy healers dedicate themselves to a natural lifestyle that helps them maintain the highest possible frequency. Processing the pain and disease of others is no small task, and if care is not taken, the healers can become weakened, burned out, run down, and ultimately washed out. To maintain their effectiveness and high frequency over the years, healers must continuously purify and stay prayed up daily. I have buried 3 legendary healers in my time, each in the prime of their lives. They were all healthy eaters and loving and generous souls. One of the many lessons healers must relearn every day is to save something for the healer. Yes, share, give, and support, but be sure to make sacred time and space for self-healing. This consciousness is what will allow the healer to continue to serve humanity in a balanced way. The beloved healer who passed so prematurely gave until they gave their last breath. What I learned from these painful examples is that the most challenging aspect of the healer's life is that the healer must dwell in Ma'at consciousness, maintaining a state of balance in all things. A healer who gives too little dries up and risks losing his or her gift. A healer who gives too much burns out fast like a comet. A healer who gives overmuch becomes resentful, a bitter healer, a broken healer. What a paradox. My prayer is that all healers will receive these vital lessons of self-care and thus gain the longevity they deserve.
Mm. So that is pretty amazing. I'll leave it up for a little while. Those who are with us live or watching this as a replay, feel free to take a screenshot. If you have the book, of course, it's page 297. But I love this because what we have to remember each and every day is that we have to give to ourselves. And, I explained earlier on the wealth building call, it was like 2 days where I just, I did some breathing. It's like, okay, it's time to go to work. And it's just like, no, you need more than just breathing. You need more than just, going for a walk. We really have to determine what our mind, our body, and our spirit needs to keep going. And I'm just really, really, really grateful for this space. I can remember doing healing works in the community for years, and it became, it altered me, right? Because it's just like, I need extra support. It can be draining, even though you're feeling into yourself again, to have those light beings to bounce off where, you're coming into a space and you're not being judged. And it's just like, you don't even have to be the healer. You could just be poured into, it's just so necessary. And that's why I take this space so seriously, because I know what it feels like to be in the field, year after year, striving to do the works, but also knowing that having a community that you can rely on, so to speak, is invaluable. So who heals the healer? Healers, as Coach Shantae said, and just not taking anyone for granted. And I love that. If you underserve, you will lose your gift, and that came to me, from my great grandmother. You have to use your gifts, and you have to use them for the good, or they will be taken away. But then you don't want to over give, and then you feel resentful. I have been in that space before, like, what's happening? So. But anyone have anything that they would like to chime in with? Any takeaways from this particular reading?
So I'm glad you picked this, because it is a very, very good topic for all of us on our healing journey, the healers, the non-healers. I think it's just very important for everyone to know it. And so I loved the breakdown of, the overgivers turn into, burnt out, and, those type of healers and everything, like really breaking that down, because I could see parts of myself, in each of those descriptions too. And so actually this morning I had woken up because, like I said, I had been resting and recharging all week, but I was like planning out my weekend to really be like a more intensive, like, okay, this is you, we're pouring into you, like, and I was subliminally asking myself that question, answering that question for myself, like, who heals the healers? Well, who heals me as a healer more specifically? And I had come to the conclusion that it is me. Ultimately at the end of the day, it is myself. And definitely this group, like, you guys, if you don't know just how much you really, really, honestly and truly mean to me, and just how, like, much of an impact you had in my life since I've, like, come into the fold. And I really, really see, like, I watch, even you, Shantae, I'm like, you're probably the one that I've watched the most to see, like, from where you were to where you are now. Because I'm like, oh, she's coming out. She wants the world to yes. And I'm like, man, you really get to see, like, what it looks like when people are genuinely loved, genuinely supported, when people are pouring into you with no expectation or, like, no ulterior motive. And like, it's just amazing. So I am just very happy that, my path and my journey has led me here, and really grateful to all of you guys. So
give thanks, and we love you too. Minshu Vibe says, "Oh wow, the Most High knows what to give and when. Thank you, divine healers. This is necessary." And it looks like hearts and stars.
Wow.
Right? So we're winding down. We're coming up on, our 45 minutes. We do again try to keep these short and sweet because we know how it can be, and everyone is full and have their things to do. So does anyone want to close us out with any closing thoughts? How to heal? Who heals the healer? How to move through people who may not be as supportive in your outside world with your healing? Anyone?
I just want to add to touch on one of the first points that we made. When you are on a path that is different from everybody else around you, and you find the truth, it's okay to be mindful of the people that you are around. And like King Dom said, allow them to ask you questions. And from their space of asking you questions, you can pour into them or give to them on the level that they're ready to receive and nothing more. And you've got to be able to discern what that level of giving is, because if you give too much, then that could turn from an opportunity to just plant a seed to them feeling like they now have to save your soul. So just be mindful to find that balance. Use your discernment. Have conversations with people that you know to be open-minded. If someone comes to you and you know that they have no intention of being open-minded, if they're just coming to you to try to poke holes into what you believe, don't engage the conversation. You just let them know, I'm not interested in having that conversation right now, and just flat out shut it down, because it's not worth your peace trying to go back and forth with somebody that's not trying to hear or understand what you're trying to communicate.
Pouring into a bottomless cup. Okay, Coach Shantae, we hear you. You just said not today.
Listen, trying to clean your stuff, putting water in the colander and think you're gonna go over to the refrigerator to wash it out. It's not gonna work.
Not water in the colander. Can you imagine putting water in the colander trying to take it somewhere? But that's real talk. That's what, I love that though. You want to drip on people. You don't want to fire hose them, even when they do come to you with questions. Yeah, definitely. Anyone else? We have like 2.5 minutes.
King Dom, come through, King Dom.
Absolutely. I was just going back to what you was saying, Shantae, is that you can't pour from an empty cup, and when you're pouring, you have to pour it into the right places so that it can filter right back into you. I have this thing where I had the 4 C's, and to becoming that healing champion, healing yourself, right? You have to have the courage, you have to have the character, and you have to have the commitment. And when you have all those things, you start to build community, right? So when you're pouring into yourself, you start to pour into others. That ends up pouring back into you, filtering back into you, and that's that community. And that's what we have here in this Emerald Green Collective. So see how I just did that? I circled all that back.
Come on, King Dom.
Pouring into yourself.
Absolutely.
So never pour from an empty cup, for those who are watching.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, family, we have come to the close of yet another discussion. We will be back next week, Friday, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, with another topic. If you have something that you would like us to cover, feel free to drop it in the comments. We will, pick it up and run with it. But until then, stay safe, heal thyself. We say peace, love, and wholeness.
Peace.
Peace.